In this series of videos, we're going to work with the Azure OpenAI Service. So before we can do anything, we need to provision the Azure OpenAI Service, and we'll do that from the Azure portal at portal.azure.com. Up here in the search bar, search for Azure OpenAI. And then this is what we want right here. And click on the Create button. And here you'll need to fill out this page with basically just information that's needed to provision the instance. So I'll create a new resource group here. I'll say RG Azure OpenAI YouTube. And then East US is fine. And then I'll give it a name. OpenAI YouTube. The pricing tier, there's only one. S0, because it really depends upon which model you're using and such. So I'll click through the rest of these, get to the final screen where we validate the configuration, and then click Create. This is going to provision a resource for us, and this one I'll speed up through the magic of video. All right, that took about a minute. Next, we're going to click the Go to Resource button. Most of what you'll do with the OpenAI service, you're going to be doing within the Azure AI Foundry. And so here's a button we'll click to go to the Azure AI Foundry. All right, and here is the home page for this particular resource. Now, what we need to be able to do is we want to work with a model, so we're going to have to deploy an instance of a model. And to do that, you're going to go down here to Shared Resources, Deployments, and then to Deploy Model. Now, we're going to work with one of the base models, GPT-4o, and so we're not going to fine-tune it or anything, so we'll click on Deploy Base Model, and then we'll search here. Here's GPT-4o, but we could search for it if we needed to. Click Confirm. Then we're going to be able to configure the deployment. For this one, we can leave everything the same, but if you needed to, you could get a different deployment type or configure some of these details down here, but I'm just going to leave everything default. And the deployment happens right away. So now what we can do is we go over here to the playground. I can say something like, what is a good, say GPU for video editing. And this is basically like ChatGPT, except that you're being billed for it. You're being billed through the resource. However, and the reason why it cuts, and the reason why it's cutting off right here is because if you look at the parameters over here, there's a maximum response token, the maximum response length is 800 tokens. In the next video, we'll see how to control some of these parameters. But for right now, there's one thing that we need to do before moving on and using the API. Need to go back to the deployments here, and if you get back to this list, you can just click on the name of the deployment. And you'll notice this endpoint and key over here. These are going to be used in the API, but while the endpoint isn't necessarily that secret, the key is, because it's basically a password. So I'm going to do is I'm going to configure a code space to use these as secrets. And I already have a code space over here, and I've got my Python and Rough extensions set up. And you can look at previous videos I've done to see more about that. So I'm going to create a README first, so I can have something to publish to Git. And then in here, I'll just say welcome. All right, now I'll go over to my source control tab and publish to GitHub. And I need to give it a name. It doesn't matter whether it's private or public. Tell it to include the README file. And now that it has been published. Now I need to go over to my GitHub homepage and click on the avatar in the upper right, go to Settings, and then under Codespaces, go to this Secrets section here. I'm going to create a new secret. I'm going to call it Azure OpenAI Endpoint. And then I'm going to go back over here to the Azure portal, or rather, the Azure portal, or rather the Azure AI Foundry is where I'm going to go. I'm going to copy this endpoint here. I'm going to paste it in value. Then I need to select a repository for it. So, or what repositories you're going to have access to this secret. And this is the one I want right here. And now I click Add Secret. Then I'll do another one for the Azure OpenAI key. I'm not going to put this one in the video because it would expose my key to the world, but you would just do the same thing as with the endpoint, except this time you're going to use the key. So in the next video, we're going to see how to use these secrets in the Azure OpenAI API.